Posen,
my gosh.
who is down there. Lauren, what are you seeing and hearing?
Okay.
It's looking like things are getting
A
chaotic.
large crowd of law enforcement come out.
We have, oh my God, we have tear gas, we have fireworks going off, tear gas is in the air, people are dispersing. I can't see anything. I'm sorry, I can't see anything.
Mm-hmm.
Lauren, yeah, back up if you can. We want you to be safe first and foremost. So, Lauren, please gather yourself, get to safety.
Yeah.
We know we have a chopper shot that we can take as well.
Absolutely.
Can we possibly take this chopper shot here? We want to get Lauren to safety. As you can hear, she can't really breathe in that area.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of tear gas. We saw that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could see all the tear gas being deployed. And if you're in these situations, which being a reporter out there before I have been, it is very hard to breathe.
And even something that Tom Waite was saying last night as he was in a similar area and feeling the after effects of some of that tear gas. You notice that large group of law enforcement coming out of the building there, and the smoke's just kind of overtaken the area here in downtown LA, where we know that there were more protests scheduled or otherwise getting put together here. And you notice that canister looks like they're in the middle of the road. As traffic continues to sort of flow through here, and now a number of people are just kind of out and about, spreading across the intersection in the area out here. And what a moment as we were wrapping up that interview, just to see this large block of law enforcement. And now here's a slightly better look at it. It's hard to tell because it's getting dark, but if they have, yes, it looks like riot shields there that they have ready to go, and an assortment of other gear at the ready.
And it looked like, Gio, there was a moment where we saw that gate just open up, and it was really an army of law enforcement come out, and immediately you saw them start to deploy that tear gas.
Yes.
And plenty of canisters. You could hear Lauren Posen, who was there on the ground. She couldn't breathe. She was coughing. If you're ever in these situations, you know your eyes itch. It's very, very hard to breathe, which is why you're seeing protesters now back up. Now, we didn't see what prompted them to use that force, although yesterday we did see, you know, a lot of the protesters yesterday were placing big garbage canisters or garbage cans right in front of those entrance and exit points. They were throwing stuff at law enforcement, and that mandated law enforcement there to use force. Now, tonight we were not able to see what really began that use of force, but you know what, we definitely saw it. You could see them just using those pepper spray, and then you can see they have non-lethal weapons as well. And
this is just one slice of the grander picture, because we've seen similar tactics already being used earlier today when we were taking a look at Paramount. As now law enforcement there is stepping up and moving with a bit of haste there across the street. There's the metro rail, so it's kind of obstructing the view ever so slightly, but we're going to keep an eye on this and see where they go or how they establish themselves, as they have now moved onto the street here, and we'll see what exactly they're going to do. But I was going to mention how when we were back earlier in the day in Paramount and then in Compton, we were seeing sheriff's deputies in those cases shooting pepper balls and getting a firm reaction toward protesters and throwing tear gas and other non-lethals out in the area. But now that you see them there setting up some cones along the street. So we're hearing our Lauren Posen was able to get into her live truck. Lauren, first and foremost, how are you doing?
Hi, Leslie. I'm so sorry about that. Things happened so quickly out here, and my back was turned to the camera, and all of a sudden we heard that big boom. And of course, that was a massive amount of tear gas that, I don't want to make this all about me, but it's all in my eyes, in my face, and my throat is burning. But that is the reaction with everybody here. And that was the purpose, to get people to move, because what was going on was protesters, and I'm going to call them agitators at this point. They were going up right to the doors there of the dock there and lighting off fireworks and basically antagonizing the police. And that is when they came out and they formed this skirmish line here. We've been out here since 3 o'clock. It was mostly peaceful, a very nice demonstration. People had their signs. They were getting their voices heard. But this took a turn tonight, and that is why we are seeing this here. And you can see the presence of the law enforcement here. They were just getting way too close. Also, they were spray painting on the dock here of the federal prison. the detention center, excuse me, spray painting as well, honestly getting out of hand. And that is why we're seeing what we're seeing here with the police breaking this up and shutting this down, because it was passing the line of a peaceful demonstration.
And that was an important context there, Lauren, because we were just commenting after you had to take a few minutes there to gather yourself, and we're glad to hear that you're doing okay, about what exactly caused that moment, because we were in the middle of talking with an immigration attorney, and then all of a sudden we just saw the live shot and tear gas just, bombarding all over the street there. So thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah.
And, it's interesting because then you see everything else just sort of operating, quote unquote, as normal. The bottom of your screen here from SkyCal, for those of you watching at home, normal traffic, and then up top you see that skirmish line. And Lauren, so my question to you is, it seemed to have worked, and it seemed that a number of protesters and others at least moved significantly down the street to get away from everything.
It did work, Gio, absolutely. I mean, the only people here that I see now in my corner here are, of course, our crew and the other journalists on the ground here. There are, oh, no, we have other fireworks going off over there. I don't know. I don't think that came from police. I can't tell from where I'm at. But it does look like, I mean, there were over 100 people here. They have now gone away. And so this definitely is working. But I'll tell you, when they set off that tear gas, I mean, there was a huge cloud puff of smoke that just covered this whole area here, and it moved very quickly. And people were just running, and it became very chaotic and quite frankly, scary. That's what it's like here on the ground when these types of situations happen.
Lauren, you have an up-close view. You're probably the closest to these officers, because I can see where our live truck is parked here. It doesn't look like a massive group of protesters down there, although obviously they were making massive moves because they were shooting off fireworks right where those doors are to that detainment center. But
okay. Sorry.
Are you being told to move
sorry,
back?
we got more people. Well, the officers were shooting tear gas at this other. See, this person walking by right now was trying to cross the skirmish line, which you can't do, and he was testing them, and they fired at him, and he's covered. He just walked by me. He's covered in tear gas.
Wow.
Yeah. So, Leslie, can you repeat what you were asking me? I'm sorry, I lost track of
it
your
is,
question there. Tell me one more time.
It is quite the situation there. I was saying there are not very many protesters left that we're seeing, but are officers or law enforcement here saying anything to these people? We're seeing them put their hands up right now.
If they're saying anything, Leslie, it's get back. They're not. Oh boy, I'm sorry, I got the tear gas in my mouth throat. You're not supposed to pass that line, and they're crossing that line, and that's why the officers are reacting the way they're reacting.
Okay, take a breath if you need it, Lauren. Yeah,
we'll check back in with you a little bit later on. Take the time that you need. We certainly will keep an eye on the situation down here in downtown LA as things have escalated a bit with a number of law enforcement establishing that skirmish line, using tear gas to disperse the crowd that we've been seeing here in downtown LA. We're going to be working on getting another interview set up here for you in just a second. But
I believe we're going to hear from U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley in a few moments here.
And in the meantime, you just kind of see that crowd has certainly moved back, and it just seems a bit scattered, but in the middle of the road. And it's important, and I'm glad Lauren explained, because she's been down there the entire evening, that earlier it was mostly peaceful protesting, a normal sort of scenario, and then all of a sudden you see this large crowd come out of the building, and then you just hear you see the sparks and the booms of the tear gas, and all of a sudden things have taken a turn. Yeah,
Lauren had mentioned that as she had been down there, as you mentioned, for most of the afternoon it had been peaceful here at the Federal Detention Center in downtown LA. She says when things took a turn is when several people began firing fireworks right at the door of the dock of that detention center. They also were spray painting the walls of the detention center as well as the garage doors there. And right now, take a look, you can see they're possibly, law enforcement just threw another canister.
I thought I saw someone throwing something. Perhaps that's what prompted it. It was a quick glance.
They threw a canister of tear gas after, I believe, something was thrown at them.
Right.
At this point, you can see what looks like, what we're looking at right now is a small group of protesters. But again, Lauren was saying there were several people that were lighting fireworks right at the doors of that detention center.
And even now,
spray painting the detention center.
You're even seeing them now.
That prompted this.
moving closer and closer. So just these last few minutes, we've noticed that after that initial dispersion of the crowd, then this small group has started to inch their way closer to law enforcement standing there at the ready. Be curious to see how this starts taking a turn, if it does take a turn, I should say. But right now, you just see the scattered crowd down there in downtown LA. A couple flags flying off in the crowd, as we've seen elsewhere across Southern California today and going back to yesterday as well. But the law enforcement lines have not really moved from those two spots that they're standing in right now, and we'll see what protesters potentially do here in the next few minutes and throughout the rest of the night.
Moments ago, we did see, as Lauren was there on the ground, that someone was trying to pass through this skirmish line of law enforcement officers. I'm not sure if they were part of the protest or someone actually just walking by thinking they could have made their way through. Either way, law enforcement told them to stand back when they kept walking. You saw them shoot what looked like pepper balls at them, several of them. Lauren tells us while she was on the ground there, she was right there when all the canisters of gas started, going at the crowd, and you heard her say, "My eyes are itching, my throat is itching, I can't really breathe, I have to get out of here," because it happened so quickly, although she said she saw what prompted law enforcement to use this force.
Right, especially because we had that question, seeing as everything sort of picked up so quickly and so rapidly. But again, there's this group here, it looks like, flashing some sort of lights, or whether it's their phones or something else, and then obviously law enforcement there on the opposite side, keeping an eye on them as well. But for now, I mean, this is the thing, and this is what we've been talking about throughout the entire day, is that there have been ebbs and flows to all of this, right? Where there are moments of intensity, whether that's a car burning in the middle of an intersection, completely engulfed in Compton, and then other spots, and then finally it gets washed out and things calm down for a bit. This case, we see tear gas getting deployed and affecting even our own reporters and everything else. Crowd runs away, disperses, and now we're in sort of a holding pattern of they start making their way slowly back toward this group while they establish a skirmish line, and then we just kind of wait and see as to what happens next.
Now, we know that tonight the president has asked 2,000 National Guardsmen to deploy to Southern California as this situation does continue to develop here, not only in downtown LA, but earlier today we saw it in Paramount. We also saw it in Compton, where Zach Boetta was live. We know that this is the second night now, Gio, of protests getting out of hand, of law enforcement clashing with protesters, and then turning into this situation where both begin to use force. And you did hear from Zach earlier. He spoke about some of the people who were in that Paramount area when they believed that ICE showed up to a location there. He says that some people who were trying to stop them from doing their jobs, were pepper sprayed. Some were detained, not because of their immigration status. They were detained because they were interfering with the job they were doing. And
this is something that federal officials have said, that if you interfere with any federal officials or federal law enforcement performing their actions, you will be arrested and or prosecuted. And of course, this all ties back into, as you take a live view of the ground here on the left side of your screen, SkyCal looks like over top on the right side of your screen, where this is all in response to ICE raids that started going back to yesterday and are planned, we should say, according to the U.S. Attorney, into the weekend as well. So what began and conducted raids in the Westlake District, in downtown L.A. and South L.A., that was on Friday, and you had this massive response after the fact, then leading into today, where they were hearing of another raid, and then that's where we've seen the escalation of moments and of violence, where we've played you the video from earlier this afternoon, where you had folks going head-to-head with a U.S. Marshal Service bus, or throwing what seemed to be rocks or milk cartons and an assortment of items at a U.S. Customs and Border Patrol vehicle. And then and this is all in the middle of raids and arrests as well for those who are interfering with federal law enforcement.
And tensions are high right now. For weeks, people have been out on our streets really protesting these ICE sweeps by the president, by the Trump administration. We've been told that at that detention center, that there were people possibly being held, in the basement, that weren't getting proper water, food, bathroom breaks. We were hearing possibly children also being detained. Families aren't able to find their loved ones that are detained by Homeland Security or ICE officials because they're not being kept here in LA.
Right.
And many times these facilities are so full that they're being taken out of state. So there is a myriad of issues here.
Yeah.
And tensions are very high.
Right, leading to a lot of emotional responses, as you can expect, confusion, anger, et cetera, and it's all sort of boiling over in a lot of moments that we've been keeping an eye on, trying to keep an eye, I should say, here on downtown LA, where we see just this line hasn't quite moved of law enforcement after they exited the building and sort of set themselves up right here.
Yeah, it does look like those protesters, though, are getting a bit closer to the skirmish line here. Again, I'm not seeing any action taken from the people there. I'm not also seeing any action taken right now from law enforcement. But at this point, it does look like they're just getting a bit closer to law enforcement because Lauren Posen's standing right there where those protesters are. And you can see law enforcement using those flashlights. A lot of times those can be hard to see if you're in front of them. So it's also a tactic to, keep people back. There is one person on a bike very, very close to some of those officers there. And it looks like they're not using any force right now.
Yeah, let's check back in with Lauren there because she's, as Leslie mentioned, just right there on the scene. And Lauren, we're taking a look at the camera here. It looks like a couple people and the crowd sort of inching closer and closer to that skirmish line. What are you seeing? Are you hearing anything at all as well?
Right. Yeah, that's right, Gio. Yeah, this crowd here. Now I see Leslie was mentioning, you guys were referencing. I was on the other side of the truck. I didn't see this small, it relatively small compared to earlier group of I don't even know if we can call them protesters at this point because I don't know if they were here earlier, but they are facing off with police right now. You can see officers, they have that their gun that they're going to use to shoot that tear gas at them if they move closer. And we keep seeing people test their limits here. And the officers are not fooling around tonight. They will deploy that tear gas the closer you get. I also see officers, they've been showing their flashlights, checking us, seeing who we are, also seeing putting their flashlights into the crowd here, and they're telling people to get back. But if they keep inching closer, and it's just asking for trouble here. The officers are not fooling around tonight. They want everybody back behind this line. And then also, I should mention, which I didn't mention earlier, this road is now blocked off. And moments before that tear gas initially first went off, we had cars trying to get through here, and the protesters were redirecting traffic to turn around to go down the road again. And then all of a sudden, things took a really dramatic turn. But yes, that's what we're seeing here. We also see people holding up signs here disapproving of ICE. And antagonizing the police, telling them, I've heard them say, get another job, get out of here, you don't belong here. Just things like that are being said to the officers as they're on the line here, trying to hold everybody back.
And Lauren, before we let you go, I sort of want to draw contrast again to what you were mentioning earlier when we first checked in with you, which was regarding the difference between what we're seeing now, what caused the agitation that then prompted tear gas being used versus what happened closer to, you've been there since 3 p.m. when you mentioned it was more peaceful protesting and a lot calmer. I mean, just sort of for anyone who might just be catching up, compare and contrast the difference between what you've been seeing throughout this entire evening.
Gio, it's night and day. Earlier today, now as I'm talking, you're going to hear police sirens come by here. I'm not sure. Let me take a look here. Okay, looked like CHP. They're just turning around there. Yes, complete night and day. Earlier, it was an organized demonstration. People were out here. They had their signs. They were protesting. They were not blocking traffic. They were at the street at some points, but nothing too crazy. But and this is, the line is moving, so we're going to move back as police move forward here because we don't want to get in their way. And, okay, we're going to wrap. Okay, we'll send it back to you.
Okay.